well as Alderwoman Pindle Charles and Alderman Arnett on the council.
And Alderman Gay.
And Alderman Gay just walked in. Yes, thank you. At this time, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move approval of the agenda as written.
I second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Madam Chair, I think our staff is telling me that we have to be specific with the transfers, so FT 1022.
That's a motion amended?
Well, yeah, the motion is to approve the agenda with the FT 1022. It says fund transfers, but this is a specific number.
Mm-hmm. Do I have a second on adding FT 10-22?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All righty. At this time, could I have a motion for approval of the minutes for the April 21st Finance Committee meeting?
Motion to approve April 21st Finance Committee meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to go right to the fund transfer. Director Johnson, I understand it's a DPW capital project, so would you like to give us a summary?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Finance Committee. Mike Johnson, Director of Public Works. This fund transfer would allow design work that is needed for the Stanton Center improvement to be completed. The process that has been followed thus far is the city spent $56,000 to prepare a facility condition report. And based on findings in that report, priority items were identified to be included in the proposed renovation of that very historic and important structure. So the city is also a recipient of a grant, a $600,000 grant in the governor's latest budget, and that would cover HVAC work, heating, ventilation, air conditioning work, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, restroom improvements, improvements to the brick facade, roofing improvements, and a very important addition and much needed addition of lockers for the unhoused during the winter, because that serves as a heating location station during the winter to prevent the unhoused from the effects of, protect them from the effects of winter. So that money is dedicated exclusively for construction work. And we do need $53,000 to prepare construction documents that would allow us to build those improvements. And that's what this is for.
Okay, thank you. I see, though, talk about current, I see that we have this as stated as such in the capital budget. There's a line item, design, for $53,000 as an expenditure, but the funding, we have a $1.2 million grant. Is this then, is this needed in addition to the $1.2 million grant?
I believe it is. It's not, the grant, I believe, would be for construction, not for design, not for design work. You tend not to get grants for that.
So this takes care of the...
That would take care of the design.
Got it.
The preparation of the construction documents needed to do the construction.
Okay, yeah, I didn't mean to catch off guard. I'm just looking at the page in the capital budget.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
the one of the initiatives now is to get started with design now. The grants are not going to be available right now, so they want to get started with the design so they can use the $1.2 million for the construction.
right. And on a good note, I understand that $1.2 million is a state grant.
Right, so there are two pieces, 600, which we had already been allocated, but we've just recently applied for, and there's a second piece that's coming in the next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Yes, I do, Madam.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
The question is, with the addition of this 53,000, do we have all of the costs needed to complete the construction at the Stanton Center?
Yes, Alderman, this would give us the construction documents and would help to further refine the construction dollars needed. Right now, without construction documents, it's a reasonably good estimate of what is needed. But once we have prepared and finalized documents, we have a really good handle on what the construction dollars are likely to be. Even with the uncertainty in the construction industry right now in terms of pricing.
What is not included in construction costs? Because it says very clearly, will cover construction cost only.
Yeah, right, so it wouldn't cover design. It wouldn't cover things that are not brick and mortar type of work.
Like supplies or materials that are
No, it
needed
wouldn't cover
within the
that.
Stanton Center?
Right, it probably would cover lockers. Lockers were part of it, so I would consider that as part of, like, the equipment, what they call the fittings, fitting out the equipment for the facility. But that would be usually part of a construction project, so it would be funded. But it wouldn't cover any professional services needed, architectural services or engineering services needed to prepare plans to be bid.
So the design portion of it
Right,
would
the
not be
design
included?
portion, correct.
May I ask, Mr. Gerald, couple of years ago, I guess it's been 2 years, there was a lot of concern about the bathrooms at the Stanton Center. And I thought we were getting a $30,000 grant from the state to cover that. What's the status, or is that included in the construction of the Stanton Center, period?
So that's what we actually used to get the condition assessment done, because we hired a consultant who did a complete survey of the building to determine what work needs to be done. And that's what paid for that,
Okay.
for that survey condition assessment.
Okay, so no work has been done on the bathrooms as of yet?
No, it should be included in the package that we're getting designs prepared for.
Yeah, so that's all in the CIP, though?
Should be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, both of you.
At this time, could I entertain a motion for a favorable recommendation?
Madam Chair, I recommend that we give a favorable recommendation for FD 1022.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. So we're gonna get right to the operating budget. We have a presentation from the Annapolis Police Department. So if you would like to get to the table, good morning, and introduce, we know who you are, but just for the public to introduce yourselves. And yeah, make sure your mics are on. Mic. Do you need them to test their mic?
No, because there should be
Yeah,
another
I
mic
know,
down.
I know.
Jody's
Oh, there we
will be
go.
hers. Thank you, Jody.
Thanks, Jody. All right, just as an introduction, and, you know, as you've read in the paper, the police budget is getting a lot of news, et cetera. It is, 25% of our general fund, so a lot of attention is given to it. The way these presentations have worked is that we would like you to do your presentation uninterrupted unless there's some urgent, a question that's preventing us from understanding before you continue. And then it will be followed by Q&A, of which my colleagues on the committee will ask questions, and then followed by my colleagues on the council. We do want to limit those questions to 5 minutes and then rotate around, just because we want this meeting to end within 3 hours. As I always say, it deteriorates after 3 hours. So, and then just so we're on the same page, I have here a proposed bottom line budget. We're looking at a proposed bottom line budget of $25,164,900. Is okay? All right. So thank you for the presentation, and you can begin.
Good morning. I'll start with introducing my staff. To my left and your right is my professional standards / administrative manager, Ron Annapolis. Oh, okay. Is that better? Okay. Thanks, Dave. I'll start all over again. I'd like to introduce to my left and to your right my professional standards / administrative manager, Rhonda McCoy. To my right and to your left would be my acting captain, and he's pretty much runs the all the fiscal affairs, amongst other things, administrative also, the academy training, in-service training, etc. And that's acting captain Dave Miguez. And so I'd like to get started. They're going to chime in with me, especially on those matters concerning the budget. And I'd like Rhonda McCoy to really speak to the cost and elaborate on the update on the state legislation and some other things. You'll see this budget has a lot of enhancements due to a lot of reasons, and we'll get into that later on. But I'd like to start off, if we can, with the Annapolis Department vision statement. Okay, the Annapolis Police Department shall be an impartial and just partner to every citizen it serves, vigorously and constitutionally enforcing the law to protect its residents and others. We shall operate effectively, efficiently, ethically, and equitably, focused on community relationships. We shall exercise careful and faithful stewardship over the authority and economy given to us by the people. We shall earn and keep public trust, recognizing the department is more than merely a peacekeeping force. We will be a guide to those seeking pathways out of the criminal justice system, a helping hand to the homeless, hungry, mentally ill, and underprivileged. We shall be a listener to those seeking to be heard and a beacon of officer safety and wellness. And that pretty much encapsulates everything that we're about as an agency or what we strive to be. Our goals and our objectives are based on the vision and mission statement. So I'll move forward to the organizational structure. I guess 5 or so months ago, I ordered a new reorganization chart to really reflect. I wanted the public to see how we really operate in our structure. I want the public to be able to look at the organizational structure and to be able to, right at a glance, determine who reports to who. And of course, I'll go over that real quickly. At the top of course, is me, Edward Jackson, and a direct report to me is my deputy chief, Major Stanley Branford. But alongside me is, of course, public information officer once that vacancy is filled. And Margaret Yu is how you pronounce her name. She's the executive assistant. Many of you here in these chambers, as well as the community, lovingly know her as Peggy. Everybody knows Peggy. Down from Stanley Branford, who pretty much runs the day-to-day operations, you'll see a lot of newly promotees. And just as a sidebar, on May 11th at 6 p.m. at Pip Moyer, we're going to have a public promotional ceremony to highlight everybody from my administrative manager to my deputy chief. Due to the pandemic, that formal ceremony didn't take place. So I'm excited to have the ceremony so that the public can see some of the great promotions that we've made. I even asked, because I don't have a public information officer at this time that usually MCs or usually serves as the master of ceremony, I asked an old English professor of mine if he would come here and put on one of his professor bow ties and his suits and MC the program, and he was honored to do so. So his name is Professor Johan Vance. He's a professor of English, so he'll be here as a master of ceremonies on May 11th, so we're excited about that. And so Justin Kleindes, who is the patrol captain, the organizational charter reflect Justin Kleindes, he oversees patrol. I won't get into, you can read the names as it goes down, his direct reports. Then we have Amy Miguez. She's a captain of operations, and she's only the third, I believe, captain in the history of a woman captain in the history of the Annapolis PD. I think Barbara Hopkins, Cynthia Howard, I can't think of the other person's name who was deceased, but I think that she's only the third woman captain, so it just shows you how we value diversity.
Captain Hopkins.
Barbara Hopkins, I'm sorry, and Cynthia Howard, Amy Miguez, and I think it's one more, so maybe four in the entire history of the Annapolis PD. So it shows you how we value diversity, and she's doing a fantastic job. And I would only expect things to get better. In fact, I predict that she's a future chief somewhere. If not in Annapolis, I think she's a future chief somewhere in the state of Maryland in the near future. Then we have, of course, to my right, again, I introduced him a few minutes ago, her husband, Dave Miguez, who's the acting captain of administrative. And of course, again, Rhonda McCoy, professional standards manager, and she'll speak to a lot of what she does. And then something that we're really making progress on is that you'll see Sergeant Castor Redondo. He's not here today, but he's doing cold case and reentry. So that's our basic organizational structure. The next slide is the personnel, and you'll see Office of the Chief. You'll see sworn 10 and civilian 6. I don't want that to be misleading. Those sworn includes reentry and the cold case squad, reentry, our community outreach. They are direct reports to Major Branford, who operates out of the Office of Chief of Police. So I don't want to think I have a bunch of sworn members who could be out there policing or providing services just in my office. That's not the case. They are direct reports to Branford, who's a direct report to me. Then next to that patrol division, we have 55 sworn and 14 civilian. In the administrative division, we have 21 sworn and 21 civilian. Operations division, we have 22 sworn and 5 civilian. And of course, professional standards, we have 1 sworn and 2 civilian. And that's pretty much the command staff functions that I just named in the previous slide, and these are the divisions that they oversee. Next, here's the fun part for me and the part that I'm very proud of, the 2021 budget accomplishments. I thought that we've done a lot of wonderful things in the year 2021. The only thing that I wouldn't characterize as wonderful, although we did what we were sworn to do, that's the homicides. They're always sad, and I don't celebrate them under any circumstances. But I'll start off by saying the Annapolis Police Department continues to exceed its goals in reducing overall incidents of crime in the city for the current budget. Overall crime was reduced by 8%. APD continues to lead in violent crime reduction when compared with agencies in the surrounding area of Anne Arundel County, reducing robbery incidents by 31% and shootings by 29%. APD cleared or solved 100% of the homicides committed during the budget cycle, utilizing technology and other methods the department budgeted to solve violent crime incidents. The department also saw 40% clearance rates for both robberies and shootings, which leads most agency clearance statistics rate in the region. Of course, to accomplish all of that, we had to increase our expenditures in terms of overtime to accomplish that due to staffing. Okay, accomplishments continue. The APD reentry program, another program that I'm extremely proud of, graduated 30 at-risk members of the Annapolis community, building stronger ties with the public, providing opportunities to the disadvantaged. 75% of the graduates are currently employed, and no reentrants have reoffended. No recidivism occurred during this period after graduating from the program. Many of you are there. when we had our first celebration at Susan Campbell Park last spring. It was very emotional. My favorite part of it was the young man who brought his entire family, his wife and his kids there, and he had made the comment with Dave Stokes. He said, it's so nice to receive a certificate from Corporal Stokes, because he remembers the days when Corporal Stokes chased him up and down Newtown. And so that was very special to me to see him get that certificate of completion. APD sought and was awarded $1.6 million of state and federal grant funding to assist with crime and community initiatives, improve technology, and to purchase or improve equipment. The grant awards continue to be pivotal in engaging the community and gaining assistance in creating a safe environment for Annapolis residents. I'm down at number 5 now, and it says APD strengthens its collaboration with state and federal law enforcement agencies through new MOUs. APD partnerships with federal and state agencies have yielded significant benefits in minimizing sales of illegal narcotics in Annapolis by seizing large quantities of drugs and monies during the budgeted cycle. There was a large seizure, many of you read it in the Capitol during this period. I guess a year ago, we seized a large quantity of heroin and fentanyl. It was taken off the streets of Annapolis with our federal partners, our state partners, the Department of Natural Resources, and the state police. Yes, we have an MOU with the Capitol Police, which is very important to help assist us, especially in times of crime increases. And those are just one example. I'm sorry. I'm going to have my phone vibrate.
It's usually my phone ringing.
It's mine. I'm sorry. I thought I put it on vibrate. Okay. And of course, getting back to our partnerships, I think a significant partnership has been our partnership with the federal government, particularly HIDA and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, have proved to be just very fruitful and very congenial and very profitable in so many ways. So I'm really happy for the citizens of Annapolis, and happy for the men and women who go out there and investigate these very difficult crimes every day, that we can pick up the phone and gain assistance from our federal partners. Hugely significant during this budget cycle for the city of Annapolis. Number 6, APD reached full compliance with the Maryland State Senate Bills 178 and 600, along with House Bill 193, in advance of the state's deadline for compliance. APD continues to move forward ahead of area jurisdictions to comply with House Bill 670 and Senate Bill 71. And just a real quick comment on that, I'm extremely proud of the work that Rhonda McCoy, I was going to call you Major. You corrected me that. I still call her Major from the days when we were north of here. But she was very vigilant in wanting to see to it that the Annapolis PD was going to be in compliance with all the mandates set forth in the law. Some of the mandates took effect October the 1st of 2021, while others took effect in March of this year, and then I guess the bulk of it will take effect July 1st of this year. And she's done a wonderful job working with the Anne Arundel County Accountability Board, she and Curry Berger, to make sure that, that we are represented well. And I don't think without you, a lot of this would have been accomplished. So I'd like to thank you publicly for making sure that that's occurred. APD hired 8 officers and 2 civilian employees, during the height of the COVID pandemic. APD continues to maximize limited resources to recruit new officers. I'll just say as a sidebar too, we're determined. I mean, I do have challenges, and I say that with all due respect, staff challenges. But what I'm most proud of, the men and women of Annapolis Police Department, 2 of them are sitting here with me right now. we try awful hard not to let that discourage us or use it as an excuse to provide the best service that we can provide. You know, the oath means everything to me, and that means through good times and bad times. And I know there's a lot of challenges due to a lot of things that's external to us all. And so I just want to assure the body that we're going to continue to do that regardless of what we get or don't get. At the end of the day, we took an oath, and we'll just do our very best to do what we have to do to make sure that public safety in Annapolis is realized to the best of our ability. And by the way, I guess number 7, we continuing to maximize limited resources to recruit new officers as well. Internal and external agency interactions. Real quickly, coordinated planned emergency response to incidents with the Annapolis Fire Department, the Office of Emergency Management, and the Anne Arundel County Police Department. It was flawless coordination in response to last year's tornado and COVID clinics. I'm proud of the work and the partnership with OEM Director Kevin Simmons. I don't think there was a day that went by or a week that went by during his weekly briefings or offline that we needed something, and he didn't go out of his way to provide us with the necessary, whether it be PPE or information or sites to get tested. And so I'd just like to take this opportunity to also give a shout out to the Office of Emergency Management, and also the Fire Chief, Doug Grimalley. He's another young man that I've had the honor to work with. There was nothing that we needed related to COVID or any other logistical items that we needed to see us through COVID and the tornado. And I said this before, 2 events that I'm very proud of is when we had to potentially defend against attacks last year when they threatened to come here in Annapolis if they couldn't breach the United States Capitol. We're the closest capital city to Washington, D.C., and we were anxious as the chief of police that we may be breached as a show of protest, but due to the coordination, again, I can't emphasize that enough, with the public safety team here, that was a force multiplier to bring everybody together, to the National Guard, our federal partners. There was just something to see. You had to be there at Marine Corps Navy Stadium and other places in Annapolis that morning. And it was done in a way that residents could continue to walk their dogs on a Sunday morning, or the joggers. And so idyllically, Annapolis looked normal. You had to know where to look, but it had something happen because of the coordination with OEM, the fire department, all of our partners, the federal government, state government, local jurisdictions. We had people from Baltimore City to come up just in case, and it was a sight to see. It kind of got me emotional to know that when the public counts on us most, we're still relevant, and we can still be there to make sure that our citizens are protected. So I just spent a little time on that because I just can't say enough about the coordinated planned emergency response to incidents. In the tornado, the response to that went off flawless. Our partners with our state and federal agencies, I talked about that through MASC and MOUs to address the organized crime. To task force, I'm sorry. Let me state that again. Our partner with state and federal agencies through task force. Examples is HIDTA, high intensity drug trafficking area, and the FBI and other organized and coordinated efforts led to illegal seizure of firearms, narcotics, and distribution. Again, large quantities of fentanyl was taken off our street, which is not an opinion. I believe that it's definitely a fact that we've seen a reduction in the overall incidence of fatal overdoses because we were able to take that off the street. My challenge is to make sure that there's no unintended consequences as a result. So we're vigilant every day to make sure that we continue to see a decline in fentanyl overdoses and other illicit drugs. And then we partner with AA County and the Governor's Office on Crime Control and Prevention by participating on boards and forming alliances that target social inequities. And of course, encumbered in that is our reentry program, amongst other things. Okay, our strategic goals. The department has 4 indicators that drive strategic goals. At the front of it is safety. The next is trust, excellence, and the optimization of resource management. And I think those are all self-explanatory. Then the next one is strategic goals. Goal 1, create security conditions which make Annapolis residents and visitors feel safe and enable a strong and cohesive community. The objective is to create crime control initiatives and social programs that target violent crimes and address recidivism. My argument has always been, from the time I got here and the time that you swore me in, that you have to take a 2-pronged approach to public safety. You have to kind of use your platform and your area of expertise to be able to explain why we have crime in the first place. And examples of that, when you have drug addiction, mental illness, alcohol dependency, broken families, hopeless poverty operating in any community, you're not going to have peace. You're going to have crime, because that's all the analogy I use is that that's like planting apple seeds with the expectations that the harvest will be oranges. When you have seeds of destruction, the manifestation is going to be structured. But then you can't have trigger pullers and rapists and child molesters and burglars operating either. So you have to stabilize the community by enforcing the law, the rule of law, and holding those individuals accountable. While at the same time trying to provide as much opportunity and engage the public to let them know that you care about them as people. They're not arrest statistics, but they're real citizens that we want to see them do well. So when we have people reentering our community, as an arm of our community outreach initiative, we have the reentry program to bring those same people back and give them a second opportunity, or at least assist them so they can realize that although they may have had a tough time, during their development years, that hopefully they've learned that they have to operate within the rule of law, and then we like to welcome them back through all of our initiatives so they can be assets to the community instead of takers from it. Of course, performance measures is to reduce overall crime. The benchmark is to reduce overall crime rates monthly by category. Goal number 2 is strengthen our efforts to earn public trust and cooperation. And in my opinion, you could easily make that goal 1 and goal 1, goal 2. They're so close because without public trust and cooperation, we can't do our jobs. If we have no integrity and no credibility with the public, then it makes it almost impossible for us to do our jobs. And so what we're working hard to do is ensure that there are planned events sponsored by the department that addresses the community needs and forges relationships. An example of that is one of the things I talked about with Alderwoman Pendell Charles as a part of the public safety initiatives. It's all out blitz, Annapolis Most Wanted, but to really partner with Parks and Recs, Archie Trader, as we enter into the summer months. All the pundits or all the experts predict that because of the economy and inflation and gas prices and a whole lot of other things that's going on in our nation, many of our cities are going to see increase numbers in terms of violent crime. So what we want to do at Annapolis, like we strive to do, is to make sure that we have plenty of opportunity in partnering with the right agencies like Parks and Recs to make sure that we have plenty of opportunities for young people to keep them engaged. The old adage that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So we want to keep young people engaged by partnering with Parks and Recs to do some of those things that we've talked about. I know Alderwoman Finlayson, we've talked about some of those things as well, like everything from reading to basketball leagues to helping people with all those life skills and giving them opportunity to exercise and to keep busy so that we don't have youthful offenders just wandering our streets as we enter into the summer months. And so the initiative was kicked off by the public safety chair when we did the Annapolis Most Wanted as a part of our initiative. And then within 24 hours, one of our violent offenders surrendered to us and turned himself in. So we're hoping that those initiatives, and that was out of a brainstorm we had talking about one Saturday evening when most people were out having a drink and enjoying the weather. We were talking about crime reduction strategies for the summer as a part of her duties as public safety chair. And so I appreciate that and those initiatives. Our first meeting was at the Stanton Center, and the mayor, myself, and the public safety chair kind of put it out there that we were going to do these things. And so it's very important that we don't overpromise and underproduce. And so part of this budget is to make sure that the things that we promise that we'll be able to actualize as we enter into the summer months. Performance measure, host or attend at least one outreach event in each city council ward each month. That's important. I love to do public speaking. I love to connect with the people. So part of my commitment as chief of police, I'd like to meet at least in every ward to talk about, if you'll invite me, our initiatives, to give pointers about, pointers to how to secure your home and your property. Just talk about public safety items, wherever the agenda may be. I think that, this department belongs to you. And so whenever you want to have the APD represented to your constituency, it's my pleasure. That's my part. I'll let the young men and women get out there and do all the physical stuff, and I'll do the talking. And our benchmark is to host or attend at least one outreach event in each. Oh, I said that each ward. You saying something else? Okay, strategic goals continue. Goal number 3, achieve and sustain organizational excellence. Objective to stay ready for all internal and external compliance and certification inspections. Stuff like example, i.e. CLIA, of course, very proud that we are associated with CLIA. That helps us formulate good policy, good general orders and good policy. Our performance measure is 100% compliance on internal and inspection criteria, and the benchmark would be percentage of compliance on internal inspection criteria. And maybe if we have time later on, you could talk a little bit about that too. Goal number 4, to strengthen our workforce, optimize resource management, the objective. All these objectives, the performance measurement, and then the benchmark, optimize resource management. The objective is to ensure efficient utilization of existing funding, personnel, equipment, and infrastructure. And as long as I have Rhonda around, that's going to happen. Trust me. And Dave. They have excellent watchdogs for how we spend money to make sure we stay within the bounds that we should be ethically. And then performance measure, effectiveness of personnel, equipment, and infrastructure compared to resources spent. We like to try to get the best bang for our buck. One of the things that I like to do, and I shared it with my 2 colleagues to the left and right of me, I want to provide good leadership programs for my command staff. I think that's important, that each command staff member picks something that they're interested in and become a subject matter expert. All it does is make the Annapolis Police Department operate more effectively and efficiently. And it tells the public that we are serious about everything that we're talking about today as it relates to trying to get the resources and funding to actualize our budget. And then our benchmark would be demonstrated return on investment in personnel, equipment, and infrastructure expenditures. Okay, these are our long-term goals. To fully integrate the 6 pillars of the 20th century policing model, to take a social approach to crime prevention while maintaining core values to provide public safety through enforcement of criminal statutes and apprehending violent offenders. And one of the pillars in 21st century policing, for those of you who are familiar, which I'm sure most of you, if not all of you are, during the Obama administration, President Obama's administration. One of the things that he talks about is diversity and officer wellness. The former president argued that we can't continue to expose officers to the type of trauma that they experience in our American cities and not have comprehensive wellness programs to make sure that they don't become affected and their behavior in the enforcement of law doesn't become problematic due to post-traumatic stress. We have to make sure that we monitor them and make sure that's a part of the new legislation to make sure that there are checking-ins, if you will, psychological evaluations, physical evaluations to determine an officer's fitness for duty, training, education he talked about. I'm big, at the core of what we do is enforce the Constitution of the United States, particularly the Fourth and Fifth Amendments, and I'm real big on our officers being fully aware of the requirements under search and seizure in the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights, those two amendments in the Bill of Rights. The second one is diversity within the department. I spoke to that earlier. When I got here, every major position was run by men, and that's not an indictment on the department, but we needed diversity. And we had talent here that just wasn't cultivated. So we're developing talent now to make sure that we have the most diverse department. We want little girls and little boys both in the city of Annapolis to realize that their department represents them and not just one group or one demographic. And then we're going to reorganize and redirected resources to align with the agency's direction towards a community policing philosophy. And that's important. It does no good if I go out and speak about community policing and what the philosophy of community policing is if you look at our organizational chart and it doesn't demonstrate that how we execute our day-to-day activities is not congruent with community outreach. So you'll hear me talk about community quite a bit because you have no community policing philosophy or department if the community is not at the core of everything that we do. And then collaborate with institutions of higher learning to educate our staff and study police community interactions. That's our long-term goal. Some of the stuff we've already started, some of the stuff that we started, but we're still realizing. Now, this is where I'm gonna turn it over to y'all. Now, this is the part of it that I'm going to turn over to my two colleagues. That's why they're here sitting by me looking real good, and they're going to talk about the actual 2023 budget. So we can go, whoever wants to go.
A slide before you is a snapshot of the 2023 budget alongside of 20 fiscal years, actuals for fiscal years 21 and 22. As stated earlier, the proposed budget is $25,164,900 for the Annapolis Police Department. A breakdown of that is $21,565,000 in salaries, $2,119,000 in contractual services, $1,067,200 in supplies, $413,600 in the capital outlay. The breakdown of these percentage-wise, as you can see, that 86% of the budget is going for salaries and benefits. Contractual services is 8.4%. Supplies and others are 4%. The capital outlay is 2%. Substantial budget changes, and I guess here are the questions that you all really want that you all really want to know. Okay. We did have some substantial changes. Some of them are due to a lot of it is due to technology costs. As you know, the nationwide, there's inflation and cost for things that we paid for in the past are now inflated. And these things, we had said last year before that the things in our budget are not things that we want. They are things that we need. They are things that we need to continue in the crime fight. If we're asking, what is our strategy? How does our strategy tie back to the budget? Our core means of keeping that crime rate down is our patrol division and our investigative bureau. Without them, we wouldn't be able to have those rates drop the way that they have. That's those men and women getting out every day, patrolling areas, and our criminal investigation who should be applauded. I have very rarely in my 28 years of law enforcement seen a 100% clearance rate. I have never seen it, but it was here. All of that cost. It cost in manpower. It cost in overtime. It cost us because we experienced some losses. We got some gains, but that 86% in your pie chart, if you're asking, what strategies, why do we need it? You can see it. You can see that we are utilizing those funds to the best of our abilities, and they tie back to our performance metrics because crime has continued to drop. Violent crime has continued to drop. Our ability to solve crimes have risen. Our solvability rates have risen all across the board. We said in our vision statements that we would be good stewards over the economy that is afforded to us, and you can see it in our statistics. Contractual services we've had some increases in our virtual desktops, had an increase of 140,000. Overall software increased by 95,300. Again, some of these things are just necessities. These are systems that we've had. We've come back to work out new contracts with vendors, and they have increased their costs. And this is what it's cost, and this is what it is costing. Our internet connection to the cameras citywide was an additional $47,000. An investigative database, which we put it in as an investigative database because we do believe that sometimes loose lips sink ships. And so if the council would like privately for us to tell us, exactly what that is, we're more than happy to do that. But to divulge what that strategy is, that it is all technical. It is for technology. It is not for overtime or anything. They're all technical. It is a technical tool. As you know, the physical agility test and the mental health testing are a part of the state laws that will soon be upon us in July. That is going to be an additional $49,600 for just those two tests to host it. To host a test. What is now happening with the physical agility is that the state has still not given us what the parameters are for the test, but we do know that so we are not sued, so we're not challenged. We do have to hire a professional company to come up with that test, meaning like what time, if it's a time test, they will work with us to tell us how the test is timed. And what we want to do is make those tests, the state will give us provisions, like, maybe they'll say jump over a wall, run a certain distance, climb through a window, or we want to make sure that is specific to Annapolis officers. So the company that we're using, they will come in, do surveys, ask our officers, well, what do you climb, most of all? As you know, that when they're out on the road, they have to go through, get over barriers in the road. they'll come back and they'll test that so we know how high, to put the obstacle. How many, steps or they should run in a specific amount of time. All of that cannot be done by us, the lay people. These are professional individuals that'll come through and do that test. We have, they're awaiting a contract from us. We're hoping that, this is approved in the budget so we can get started, but we haven't gotten started because the state hasn't given us the parameters of the last, thing we heard. Rumor mill is they put certain items in there, but they haven't, as of yet, the training commission come back and say, this is what we want you to do. But one thing that they are stating is that certification, officer certification, is going to be based upon that. You don't have police officers if you can't certify them. So we want those tests to be very comprehensive, and we want them to be able to stand scrutiny. The mental health testing, we have found a vendor. We are working on with contracts with the vendor for July 1st. We are hoping to take a different approach because we can. We don't want that provision of the law to be just a I got you, hey, go take this mental test, and hey, we came up with an approach, and this is through our implementation group, which is the city manager's office, it is human resources, it's the office of law, it is the finance department, and we all came up with a comprehensive way of testing officer, which is a two or actually a three-prong approach, where we would bring in trainers to talk about, because that is one thing that hasn't been done in law enforcement, is training officers specifically about trauma in their lives and how to deal with specific traumas. And most people think that it's trauma related to the job, but no, there could be a childhood trauma that's triggered by something that happens on the job. And so we want officers to recognize that. So we're bringing in trainers, and then of course there's the actual testing of the officers to go in and talk with the psychologist. And then afterwards, we can't ignore that there may be costs. There may be something wrong with an officer, and we might have to take them offline. And there's going to be a cost associated with that. Supplies and others, Axon increased by $186,000. And I know that you all are going to say that's a big jump. We talked about this last year. There were maybe prior to the state law, less than 20 agencies in the state that had body-worn cameras, and now the whole state has to have them. And so we enjoyed a very lucrative discount from Axon, which most of the agencies are going to Axon, and now they just really don't have to give us anymore. There is no need. So, and we have no choice but to pay it. We would not go back and try to source another vendor, because that would just cost more money. The cameras cost money, training everybody, retraining everybody costs money. And we did enjoy the new contract that we wrote with Axon. We enjoyed certain discounts, which I'll let Captain McGee speak on. Axon, the discounts that we got in the new contract.
Yeah, so one of the other things about the Axon contract is, so we were coming out of a 5-year contract, so the last one we struck was in 2017. So Axon was a smaller company then. This newer contract, they contacted us towards the end of year 4 to let us know that their prices were going to continue to increase. And so what we decided to do was start the new contract a year earlier in order to take advantage of the current prices and not risk not just inflation, but increases for their services and products as well. And then So they rolled the year 5 payment from the first contract into the year 1 payment of the new one. They also allowed us to pay what we had already budgeted for that year 5 because they knew we weren't going to be able to get the extra money for the increase on the next contract, that far into the fiscal year. So the new contract for the 5 years was a $1.5 million contract. If we had spread it out equally, we wouldn't have been able to pay that year 1 because of what we had already budgeted was so much lower. So our year 1 payment was what we already had budgeted. And so the remainder of the 1.5 was spread out over 4 years. So that's why there's such a large increase on the Axon annual payment. But we also, it's a newly designed taser model. The cameras that we currently had are the same, but we'll get 2 hardware refreshes within this contract. So when they come out with the next 2 models of body-worn cameras, we get those at no cost. We also got a redaction program within the services that they provide, which will enable our in-house people to perform redactions on video that's requested for MPIA requests. And what that does is saves us money from sending it out, which we had been doing in years prior to a private company to review and do redactions, which was incredibly expensive. It was, in fact, one of the changes in our fee schedules is for body-worn camera video. It's up to a maximum of $13 a minute. That's what the private company charges. You can, even just a traffic stop for 15 minutes. Much less a long investigation, multiple officers on scene, it's hours and hours of video. So we've been able to save money by getting that component in the program to reduce the costs of redaction. And hopefully we don't have to send any video out at all. But if we do, if our personnel can't handle the amount of redaction that needs to be done, we'll still end up, we still have a contact with the vendor that will be able to send it out. There was also an addition of de-escalation videos and VR equipment within the program that we got. And we also got a grant to cover that component of the cost in the contract. So it was it's a huge, the original contract was somewhere in the area of 780,000, maybe 790, and the new contract is 1.5. It almost doubled. But we're getting a lot more services, we're getting updated equipment, and to some extent, we're able to reduce some other expenses that we paid for previously.
Our last call is, and we've highlighted substantial changes rather than go down. We didn't put anything under $5,000 in it because we know that you all want to know what the big changes were. Other professional services, and this is 100% increase. It's, we have a $50,000 increase, which is last year's budget was $50,000. And what we found is that, not even mid-year, we had reached that budget already. And this is the other professional services are for the cost that we pay for other agencies to come in and assist us with events. We have more increased events, and the cost of the officers have gone up. Other agencies have given officers raise. This is calculated by their overtime rate when they do come in, and it has substantially gone up. Many departments are raising their salaries to keep officers, and we would not be able to handle the events, put the football games, parades, other things, and staff for patrol to be out patrolling our streets, staff for our investigative units if we did not have these individuals coming in and assisting us, the other agencies, but the cost has gone up dramatically. Our budget enhancements. Non-personnel state legislation compliance expenses at that $98,250. And again, half of that is the physical agility test, is the mental health test. Another large portion of that is a breakout is we still cannot know what we have an accountability board. I'm going to say praise the Lord. You know, we got a bill passed, and we do have a county accountability board. But we don't know whether you all know that this the way that the state set the system up, it kind of bifurcated the system. So you have, we have a new bill, thank goodness, that came in and addressed some of our internal complaints. And they're all going to go over to the administrative charging committee and then the trial board that's handled within the county. However, technical infractions are still ours. So our system is bifurcated in that if I'm late, if I crash a car and I didn't crash into anybody, it was in a pole or with a pole. If I'm insubordinate, if anything that would not involve a member of the public still has to be adjudicated. And so the law clearly states in the new House Bill 793 that we have to establish a trial board system. We are going to be in talks with the county. We still do not know about the current process, the accountability board and trial board for the county. We just needed to get the bill passed, and now we're going in to do the hard work to talk about the logistics of the system, how we get information flows, which could come at additional costs we don't know, because the systems need to talk to one another. We don't have that yet. The only thing we have now is maybe email, and we wouldn't want to send sensitive things through the system. We need to build those systems up. And then there's the trial boards. I can tell you, as I told you last year, Baltimore City has already instituted that. They do have judges or a judge sitting on their trial boards at $400 an hour. We anticipate that this is going to come at a cost, that we're going to have to pay the judge. And the law changed in the new Senate Bill 793 that said that the judge is the chair of the trial board and that they have to write an opinion. So all of this is work. And we don't anticipate that any judges are going to want to do that much work without being compensated. We've already seen precedent for it. However, we have some things that we have to do. We have some talks that we have to have. We could go to the county as far as our internal systems, those infractions, and say, can we use the trial board system established by the county, or if we establish it ourselves, we need to. We're going to have to pay a judge. They're not going to get paid from the county and then come over and not get paid from Annapolis. So we budgeted about $28,000 for the judge, and that's based on what we had. Last year, we would have had 3 trial boards lasting about 2 days, and if we go with that, 3 trial boards lasting 2 days at 8 hours each day. It's actually works out to be a little bit more than the $28,000, but you know, that's where you're going to get your costs from. You know, is it highly probable that we're going to have these costs? Yes. We are talking again with the county tomorrow. I'm hoping to have something definitive, you know, from the county on, you know, whether we can use their system and if they're going to charge us to use their system. Remember, for the accountability board side of it, you know, that's everybody but those technical infractions. They don't have to do that for us. They simply don't. And if it's coming at a cost to them, it's probably going to come at a cost to us. Civil service conversions, our investigative support analysts, we needed we're asking for a conversion. Remember, the council in its deliberations set that we would roll the contracts over and make permanent positions before 5 years. What we are trying to do is trying to roll over every 2 years a contractual position, so we don't get to the end of the 5 years and then have a big balloon cost. So we're trying to space it out. Our civil service conversion for special events coordinator is $24,620. Part-time to full-time contractual conversion for our reentry team member, which is, you all know Bishop Carroll. Our contractual full-time internal affairs investigator, and that's at the $98,000, and that encompasses fringe. I wanted to speak, you know, primarily to, and this is a new position for an internal affairs investigator, meaning that the state law says that we have to have a liaison for the police department, and we will need, once we build those systems, once we start speaking to the accountability board, we will need someone as a liaison, you know, back and forth with the accountability board and the administrative charging committee. We're going to have to do presentations, PowerPoints, you know, the whole 9 yards, plus do investigations. When July hits, LEOBR, the Law Enforcement Bill of Officers' Rights, will be no more. And one of the provisions under LEOBR was that a civilian could not investigate a law enforcement officers, meaning that they couldn't ask them questions, they couldn't interrogate them. With the abolishment of that, it's the opportunity for us to hire a civilian investigator and bring an experienced person in to help us with the cases. Right now, we're primarily doing that on overtime. We have one person, and that is Sergeant Assion, performing those tasks. Once July hits, he will not be able to catch up. And, you know, because a lot of that job encompasses MPIA requests. Now the public can request records for law enforcement officers, body-worn cameras, their jackets or files, which have to go through a redaction process, and that, you know, and that is tedious. We need an additional person, and we want that liaison. We feel that the public would embrace a civilian as opposed to a sworn person, and we simply just don't have the staffing to move a person. We're from out of patrol or out of our investigative divisions or anywhere else to meet this need, and I think it would be something that the public would want to see. Contractual full-time body-worn camera reviewers. We talked about the body-worn cameras. We talked about they would be twofold. We talked about having someone there watching the cameras, the city watch. But when they're not watching the cameras, we need those individuals for, you know, we have the redaction software, but we also need someone, you know, to actually work the software, to, you know, to go in and redact certain things that, you know, we need. And if you look at it as opposed to when people ask for videos, or if, you know, the law enforcement responded to your home, we wouldn't show your house number. We wouldn't show, pictures and things, in your house. There are a number of things we wouldn't show juveniles. There are a number of things that are of great importance that need to be redacted out of that video. And again, we just don't have the staffing to move someone. We're patrol and our investigative services are critical right now, and they are working very, very tediously to meet the need and to keep that crime rate down. We can't move anybody from there. Obviously, we do need someone watching the CCTVs to tell us, hey, things are happening. And when we do have people requesting the video or requesting redaction, we don't want them to wait 2,000 years to get the video, because we got to pull somebody offline, or it's a task assigned to Sergeant Ascione to go in and in addition to doing cases. We want Sergeant Ascione working cases, and we really need this. Then we have our PCO1 and PCO2 conversion at $17,000. As you all know, we promoted up our PCO2 to director, and so we need a conversion for the new job, for her old position, because we actually converted that position to a director's position.
Yeah, we've had a PCO1 acting as a PCO2 for several years now, and so that's what that enhancement was for, to adjust the position number and nature of positions to the actual schedule and staffing that we have.
And now we'll take any questions, which I'm sure you have a lot. I see Alderman Gay over there chuckling.
Sorry, we're just excited with what you presented us.
Yeah. I'll go first. Thank you very much. Thank you for the pie chart. And it was a great presentation as far as tying in your priorities and the budget. I have about 4 or 5 questions involving the budget, and then 2 in response to some of the what Chief Jackson said. The big one is probably a Director Dickinson question. It looks like your budget increased. I have from last year about 13%, but there's something weird going on with benefits. They're skew, like they're in relation to salaries. Is that a placeholder for union negotiations?
Can you repeat that? Are you looking at the detail?
I'm looking at, and they have it too, is the salary and benefits summary on OpenGov or wherever in the book. And so if I look at the adjusted, if I look at the salaries proposed to FY22, they're somewhat comparable. I have 12,769 versus 12,085. So somewhat comparable, but then when I go to the benefits on them, the benefits for proposed 2023 is over $7 million versus the 5.5.
Are you looking at the projected amounts for 22?
Adjusted budget. Or original budget, it doesn't matter. I'm just asking why the benefits percentage of salaries is substantially higher as a percentage versus the last budget.
Last year. If I could, actually, so I noticed that same thing, and unbeknownst to Director Dickinson, I emailed Katie about that earlier. So some of the increase in the benefits was attributed to step increases for employees. There's also a number, we get a grant through the state called State Aid for Police Protection, and it gives us about $1 million each year. But so additionally, with the increase in those benefits, are for those employees that are paid, where their salaries are paid for by that grant. And then any additional money that we get over that $1 million will end up any salaries over the $1 million we would be paying for out of the general fund. And then there was some slight increases in overtime and nighttime differential. I think if I'm explaining it correctly.
So your explanation includes the increase or salaries too. So I think your question was just on benefits, right?
One second, could my colleagues look at this? Am I looking at something wrong here?
No, you have 7 million in benefits. You're seeing it right.
5.5 to 7.2.
Yeah, and the salary the salary number kind of stayed in the same, yeah. Okay, so Director Dickinson?
Yeah, so the biggest part of that increase relates to how we're showing the benefits for the people that are reporting to SAP. Right now, we have 10 to 12 positions that are not budgeted in the general fund. Those positions are budgeted in a grant. And when we add this year, we added up all of their salaries and their benefits, and it exceeded the $1 million allotted by the state by 700,000 or more than that. 725. So what we did was we took, the biggest part of that's benefits, so we took the benefits piece and added to benefits in the general fund.
Yep.
And there's also a little piece that's been added to the salary line as well. So the grant maxes out at $1 million, and right now, the way everything's been growing, those salaries and benefits exceed the $1 million by $725,000. So we're going to show it in the general fund, and we may end up having more turnover than we expected because we've added these positions, some of which are vacant, into the general fund. But that's the cause for that large increase.
Okay, and then, so there's grant money there that we don't see here, got it.
Yes, and what happens, as he was saying, is during the year, we charge those salaries and benefits to that grant, but then at the end, we say, oh, they're over the $1 million, or one year we think got more like 900,000. They're over the amount of the grant, we move them back into the general fund. We're just trying to show it a little more clear on the budget side.
Okay, thank you. Training, and this might be for, well, whoever. Training was in the state mandate, you know, they asked for entry-level training, et cetera, and I was just surprised, not knowing how much this stuff costs, but why it wasn't higher. But then I think when you talked about the other, the mental health stuff, I guess that's to supplement training?
Yes.
Are you comfortable with the training included to address the state mandate?
Yes, $30,000 will be going for training for that that mental health piece, and we did put that in the training budget.
Okay.
And that will, you know, be moving to, again, addressing or coming in, working with officers, you know, in relation to trauma, in relation to how, you know, to deal with trauma, taking our CISM team, that in-house team, and getting them certified with certain certificates, and to, you know, to be able to address, like right now, it's more peer support, but getting those core 5 or 6 people, you know, certifications to better talk to and manage individuals that may be experiencing a crisis, and working with them, and then the trainers coming in, and again, talking to our officers about their mental health and about trauma. What I can say, Alderman Tierney, is that they gave me the opportunity, the company that we want to use, they gave me an opportunity to go and preview the program. And, there were some things that, I would have said, of myself that, oh yeah, I got it under control. But after taking that training, it was an eye opener, so there is a lot of things that, can be learned. Some of the tools that, they taught me in that training, I'm using today. So I think it's going to be a good thing. I think it's going to be, good for our officers, to kind of rethink things, and instead of going into like a lecture focus where we're always hey, did you know this, did you know that? It's actually giving them tools and giving them tools to work on things themselves, and to recognize that not everything is related to the job. Some things are just life, and but the job can complicate those issues.
Just because of the title and somewhat related, in your budget it says special programs. It doesn't have any detail for $98,300. I was just curious on what that was. Special programs, if that was related to the above. I think.
Where is that?
Which category are you talking about?
It's under, I keep thinking this is a touch screen. It's under supplies and others. And there's training and education.
I can answer that.
Yeah.
That is the placeholder that we put for your state legislation costs.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Placeholder. Okay, that's always good. On the Axon, and thank you for your work on that. That's in construction. We call that upfront loading. You capture the costs up front when you know they're going to
it's a big bite up front, right?
Yeah, thank you for your due diligence. The body cameras, are we receiving any state money for body cameras?
No.
No.
No, we're not.
No.
And the state is offering, but it's for departments who do not already have a program running.
Oh, okay.
So since we started back in 2017, they have plenty of departments who, to this day don't have body-worn camera programs, and that's what they want to support. I can't blame them for that.
Okay, thank you for that. On the CCTV monitoring, you asked for this an enhancement, and so am I to understand that those, and I've been in your office, where you have these cameras, but you're saying there's really no one proactively looking at them or monitoring them, or is it more of a reactive stance when something happens?
It's both. It's a mixture of both. We do have people monitoring them in real time.
Right
but
now.
When
yeah. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. But right now, what do you have?
Yes, we have one dedicated employee.
Okay.
And he is contractual. And so we then have people officers who may be on light duty or not in a full duty status assisting with that. But I would say the bulk of our video requests that come from the state's attorney's office or that come from MPIA requests, things like that, they're handled after the fact, reviewing, okay, it's this incident that they're looking for video for, how many officers were on the incident, so how many body cameras are we looking, how many accounts are we looking at, how many videos, because the officer may start a video and then stop it to go do something else, but they may come back to that incident and start their video up again. So it's a lot of video requests that we have. So
what I'm getting at with these, looks like several of these enhancements is you would otherwise pull the focus. At least I know for my constituents is patrolling, and I know that you have worked really hard in refocusing and restructuring patrolling units. So not having these requests, are you pulling officers from other duties?
We are to some extent pulling officers from other duties depending on the nature and urgency of the request. We are not, I can tell you, we're not pulling officers from patrol to come in to review CCTV footage. But it may be detectives who are setting aside temporarily the cases that they're working on to assist with reviewing BWC footage or CCTV footage. And then, like I said, it's also, you know, if we have somebody in a non-full duty status, then we try to make the best use of their time that we can. And so typically that's one of the first places that I ask, because as the chief mentioned, I run the admin side of things. So anyone in a non-full duty status comes under my command. And so I ask my other captains, but typically it's on the investigative side. Hey, I have so-and-so. Do you have a need where you could take advantage of this person in a non-full duty status for whether it's a day here or there or the next 2 weeks, you know? So we try to make the best use of their time as we can, so nobody's just sitting around.
Okay, thank you. Victims' right advocate is in the state legislation?
Yes, and that's why we want that full-time internal affairs investigator.
Oh, that's that.
Yes, that
Okay.
will, you know, we say that, you know, we try to maximize on, you know, everything that we do. So the investigator will come, you know, they'll investigate certain crimes or certain offenses in the police department, probably, you know, more on the lines of those technical infractions. But they will also serve as that advocate, you know, so, and that's why we were saying the importance of, you know, we believe that the public will probably want to see a civilian, you know, within that position, rather than a sworn person being named as the advocate. And I don't have I only have, it's myself, Sergeant Ascione. That's it. And we are operating now off of overtime, you know, just to keep up with MPIA requests to investigate cases and get them out in a timely manner. And come July, we will have to have that person. And, you know, we are on track. And another thing that we didn't mention in cost was the increased cost to our internal affairs, our complaints program. That went up by $25,000 because the state said that we had to have that front-facing portal. We are ahead of schedule. The company that we currently use had software for the portal. We are testing the portal right now. We got it up. We stood it up. You know, it's running. They're giving us a preview of it. Come July, they're going to want us to pay for it. But right now, as we're in that testing phase, you know, we'll be utilizing the services of the Human Relations Commission to, you know, run through usability with us and give us some feedback. And we hope to stand up the portal June 15th before or well before July 1st. But, you know, we do need... These are all just increased things because now we, you know, the way that the public portal works is it'll put more things in Sergeant Ascione's box to say, you know, you got to go to the portal and pull, you know, cases over into the system called IA Pro and start investigating them. And we just don't want to get people overwhelmed. The internal affairs cases are of great importance. You know, I want to be able to tell people that we are, you know, and we do investigate those things to the, you know, to best of our ability, and it's a top priority. If someone did something, we want to address it. And we don't want that to be one of the areas that we are falling behind in.
Okay.
We want that to be a priority.
All right, thank you. I have 3 questions for the chief, and just to give my colleagues time, I try to be I'm trying to be cognizant of that. You mentioned that your costs for servicing these major events, like the threats and the potential disruptants, they have. I believe you said that those costs have increased. However, our dilemma is the primary source of revenue for you is our local taxes and also some state shared revenue, and we call that fee in lieu of, which has remained pretty steady. Well, there was a jump, and now it's. Do you believe that is? Does that justify some re-review of your costs for fee in lieu of services?
I think so. Yes, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Okay.
And when I had spoke of that, the good news, if it is any good news, those kind of events are not things that we have to concern ourselves with in our day-to-day operation.
Understood.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But we want to be prepared to have adequate coverage when those needs arise.
Right. So
that's the one thing about this business that's very challenging. You can never predict. In many cases, most things we can predict, but there are events where we can't. But when we do, then we want to be prepared.
The state's going to give us what they give us unless we ask for more.
Right.
So, and then you mentioned that to redirect resources to align with community policing philosophy. Do you feel that your budget has done that do you feel good about the budget doing that? You use the phrase realigning your resources to align with community policing. So are you there yet, or you still have more work to do?
We still have more work to do. It goes back to the point when I had made the comment that whatever it takes, the technical answers, I could still use more resources to align with my vision. But it's not going to stop me from moving forward, if that makes sense. I can always, for example, a big part of my community policing initiative is the reentry program. And I'll tell you why real quickly. The reentry program is in large part about giving opportunities to returning offenders once they've paid their debt to society. But what it also does, it's a force multiplier. Many of those reentrants also come on board and they talk to at-risk young people. They help us with all types of information. And for the viewers who may be watching this, I don't mean intelligence information in terms of ratting out fellow former associations, although I'm not opposed to that either. But what it does, it talks, many of them have been very beneficial to keep us abreast of the culture. A good police force has to be able to understand the current culture that's out there. You know, the older you get, at least I find it, is that the language changes. You have to understand social media. You have to understand the language that young men and women are using out on the street, especially when it comes to potential threats. And so the reentry program, because we reach out to them, and if it's done correctly, then the reentrants will see the value, because they realized that crime was only an alternative because they couldn't mainstream themselves. But once they mainstream themselves, they want the same things that we want, and that's public safety and peace in the neighborhood. So they come over to our side. And so that's just an example of how reentry is a force multiplier. So I could always use more people. And then our overall outreach when we have events you know, I say this all the time. Part of a duty I see as a good police chief is that you have to make sure that we create the environment where the city can prosper. You know, I mean, part of my job is to make sure that I can assist in any way I can to make sure commerce is not disrupted. You know, that when people want to have events that garners money, that especially puts tax dollars in the coffers of the city, that people will feel good about wanting to come because they feel safe and secure.
Since that's what I believe is a one-time expense on the reentry program, if you could come back to us with what additional resources you would need to increase that program. I'm being a little subjective there. I attended that graduation, and your force multiplier is the right word. It's exponential, because you got the graduates and you have their children and they're looking up, and it's just a great program. Anyways, last but not least, and this one bothered me, you used the word relevant, Chief Jackson. You used it, and I'm saying it out of context now. You said something like it makes us more relevant. Do you feel relevant as a Annapolis Police Department?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is that in spite of the public sentiment about policing right now, and a lot of it's justified. I mean, every time there's a bad policing event anywhere in this country now, we have to be mindful of that because the public just demanding better service. What I'm proud of is that when you really, at the end of the day, it breaks my heart when I can't prevent any crime. It really does, especially violence. Anybody who knows Ed Jackson well now, I despise trigger pullers. It just breaks my heart because everybody has a right to live. And the thing that I get so disgusted about killers, they want to go on with their life. They want to take you from your family, but they want to live. And that's the most selfish act that I think any human being can engage upon. But I do think that we're relevant in so many ways. I'm so proud of the men and women. Hell, they made me a rock star outside the city of Annapolis. And it's not because of anything I did. It's because of people like this sitting at this table and the support that you all have given us. So to answer your question, yes, ma'am, we feel very relevant. Now, I'll never sit at this table and say that I have enough because we can always do more. That's just the caveat, the sidebar. For every win that we made, I'll do a real quick analogy. I remember when I got my first promotion, my family was there and I was so proud, but then they said, well, you don't look happy. I said, well, I want what that guy has now. I wanted the next promotion. I got this now, so the chase is off, so I want to enhance it. And that's the same thing. Every time we have a wonderful initiative, I'm thinking about how can we improve upon that or what the next step is going to be.
Oh, you're certainly raising the bar. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to start from the end and work my way back. Enhancements. The last 2 pages of your presentation, one is titled Budget Enhancements, and the other one is Budget Changes. On the page that is titled Budget Changes, those things are already included in the mayor's budget, and you're simply showing us how much he's increased all of those line items.
That's right.
That's correct, ma'am.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Perfect. Under the enhancements, are any of these included in the mayor's budget? Is it just the first one that's labeled approved? And are the others what you're asking us as the finance committee?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to be clear. So the very first one, the 98.2, is included in the mayor's budget, but none of the other items are.
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Detective Assion is head of detectives, right?
Sergeant. Sergeant.
Sergeant and,
I'm
you get me, Acting Lieutenant Assion.
Is he still head of the detectives or no? Okay, I'm
No,
behind.
he's in Internal Affairs.
Okay, because I was gonna say, we're just heaping it on. You know how I feel about putting stuff on already full plates, so I'm glad to hear that. Post-employment benefits, and maybe this is for Ms. Dickinson. Looking at the diagram, the chart, I guess it must be in the budget book, under salaries. One of them showed 0 for post-employment benefits and the VEBA.
We do not put the budget in those line items. All of the budgets for benefits are in one line item. And when we record the actual during the year, the actual transactions get posted to the individual line items, but you need to roll all those up together when looking at if you're comparing actual to budget.
Okay, so that's why it's in one item, I guess, for 22, but nothing.
You'll
for-
see
write
there's
down
a
the page.
budget for benefits in 22 in just the benefits line item. But when you look at actual projected for 22, we will have projected amounts in the VEBA and projected amounts in the OPEB line.
So for 23, where are those projected costs? Because I think I'm seeing 0.
So in 23, what you're looking at is just the budget for 23. So budget is projected for 23. You're only going to see a benefits line. Everything is grouped together in the benefits line item.
Okay, under salaries and benefits.
Yeah, under salary and benefits for a budget, you will see usually 3 items: salaries, overtime, and benefits. As we go through the year, we'll actually break down those benefit transactions into more accounts: the VEBA, the OPEB. Sometimes the overtime gets broken down. We have different components that we record. But when you look at them from a budget perspective, it's just benefits.
Okay, will you, or do you have it broken out into, under benefits? I think there was a question earlier about benefits, or maybe that was about something else. Anyway, could you break it out? I mean, do you have it already broken out so we see how much of it is post-employment benefits? I thought VEBA was going away. Is that not going away?
So VEBA is available for certain employees. OPEB's only available for new public safety employees. If a new civilian employee comes to work in the police department, they will get an option to to have a VEBA account opened. And there are other civilian employees there that have VEBA accounts.
Okay, but not civil service employees.
Well, that's what I meant. Civil, what'd I say? Civil?
You said contract.
Oh, I thought I said civil service. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, so, but it's only limited to a certain group of new hires.
Yes.
Okay. Because I thought that was going away after we did the.
OPEB is limited to the public safety, and VEBA is anybody else who comes to work here as a full-time civil service employee.
Okay, does the OPEB show an increase for this year, 23? Are we at the level where we should be?
So no, the OPEB fund overall is still showing a significant unfunded liability. And for our purposes, we are contributing a certain percentage of salary for OPEB, and I think there's a couple different OPEB structures. Sometimes it's 2%, sometimes it's 3%, depending on the employee and when they joined. But that portion of their salary is going to the OPEB fund. It's not enough to fund the total liability. If you recall our discussions of the actuarial analysis, the OPEB fund is not fully funded.
Okay, so what percentage are we? I thought we were at like 80.
That's pension, not
Okay,
OPEB.
That's not OPEB. Okay.
Yeah, and if you give me a minute, I can look it up in here.
Okay.
And in general, the unfunded liability in OPEB is getting better, but not because we're not contributing a lot of additional money. We are contributing some additional funding, but since we've limited who can join the OPEB plan and the assets keep building, our unfunded liability is actually going down. So give me a minute here. OPEB contributions.
May I? Because it's in benefits. It's not in that. It's in benefits. Salary. So do you think they'll be able to calculate it? Yeah, oh, she'll.
I'll keep looking for it, and I'll chime in when I find it.
That would be fine, thank you. Axon, they're not giving us a benefit because we were one of their early clients? I mean, really?
I would say that they are still, they're cutting us breaks where they can. And they have been, and some people would say, I would certainly hope so, they are incredibly responsive when we have issues either with hardware or software or questions about, hey, I need, this person needs to get trained up on this. Is there someone that can help them? They've been incredibly responsive to us. But and I don't know the numbers as far as their company and where they were, 6 years ago when we started that first contract. But they've definitely expanded because as the chief or Ms. McCoy mentioned, Maryland isn't the only state that's requiring BWCs. There's only a few companies out there doing it, and Axon's been doing it, I would say, for longer than most of the other ones. I'm not sure about their main competitor, how long they've been doing it. But we pay that main competitor for other services plenty of money.
Well, you can go back and tell them that one of the finance committee members beat you mercilessly because they're not willing to give us a better deal since we were early clients and trusted and believed when we went to body cameras in 2016. And I remember it very clearly. So tell them,
I'll let them know.
Please do. Doubling our contract is not a good deal in my mind, but I know you have to do what you have to do.
It's a lot of increase in, in services and upgraded equipment, as well. And we're really happy. Actually, one of the other things in our budget is cameras for interview rooms. And, of course, there are all kinds of companies that do that. But Axon's product will integrate seamlessly with the infrastructure we already have. For what it's worth, when the state's attorney's office needs video, it's easy to get it to them. And so the county police use Axon. The more, it may sound like a monopoly, but the more functions and devices that can be integrated into one thing, the better off you are. Because when you have to deal with different systems and different softwares, things patch, but they don't patch well. So.
Well, I don't want you to drive them away, but just let them know that, we expect a deal, really. I'll come back to that question, though. Ms. Dickinson? I'm sorry.
Yes, so 83 in your ACFR, you can see the trend there. The current number, you're looking for what are unfunded, the net position as a percent of the liability is only 21%, 21.2%. That means we have assets set aside to cover 21% of the liability. So the unfunded piece is the difference between that and 100.
That doesn't sound very good to me.
Well, because it's a very young plan, it's only been in existence for 5 years.
Okay.
So it's building. And I was going to tell you that this page 83 actually gives you the trend. It's taking it from 6.8% in the first year to 21%, and each year we've climbed a few percentage points. So we're getting there, and we do fund a little additional amounts towards unfunded liability every year. We're increasing our contribution toward the unfunded liability by $25,000 every year. So we are increasing our contributions.
Okay, thank you. Captain, redactions.
Yes, ma'am.
As Axon, I think you mentioned that Axon is doing that also for us, or has that capability?
They have a component of their software so that our personnel are able to complete redactions within the program.
So that's another benefit.
It is another benefit. It was it's one of the reasons for the increase. but it also, as I mentioned, saves us money from sending it out to a private vendor, which is what we used to do, and hopefully we'll be able to avoid that completely, but it just depends on the volume of requests that come in.
So kind of, maybe it's not doubling since we're getting more benefits, right?
Right. It's, you know, the end result is almost a doubling, but in between there, some things went up, some things went down, you know, so.
Thank you. How long do we keep the footage?
Ooh.
And I don't know why I had this discussion recently with someone who said we keep it for 30 days unless it's part of an active case, in which case we may keep it for 90 days. I have no idea who
No, we
told
keep
me
it
that.
much longer than 30 days. Yeah. There are, I'm sorry? There are settings within the program, but it comes down to how you're categorizing the video, and so that you could, one category label, you could set that to retain for, say, 30 days or 90 days. But you have to have the personnel to review the video to know that that is the only concern in this video. And if you mislabeling it a certain way, you may end up allowing a video to be deleted that you may come back to need later on.
So that speaks to your need for a second person to watch the cameras.
Yes, it's everything that has to do with, it's not just watching the cameras, but it's reviewing videos that are uploaded into the cloud, making sure that they're labeled correctly. And so that's, you know, that's a direction we would like to head in the future, to be able to set things up from the front end to delete after a certain period of time. But at this point, we don't have the resources to do that.
Is the cloud more expensive for us? I think, if I remember correctly, we were paying about $26,000 a year for storage.
The cloud may be more expensive, but in this day and age, it's the only way to go for video storage. What we would have to pay for servers, I can't even imagine how much we would have to pay for servers to hold that amount of video. I mean, it's 24 hours a day, you know, even just at our minimum staffing, videos coming in, you know, after every shift. It's mind-boggling how much video we have stored in that cloud.
So we are paying something, though, for the storage on the cloud, aren't we?
Yes, we are, but it is included. In fact, I think whatever we pay, I think it is for unlimited storage. So
that won't change then, hopefully.
Don't speak too
Thank
soon.
you. Retired rehirees. How many do we have this year? The retired rehirees. Last year you had, I think, 14. Officers in the department who retired and have been rehired in different positions.
In other positions? Good question. I can tell you.
I didn't think it was that many.
Where was I here?
Paul Gibbs.
For this fiscal year, sorry.
It's not that many.
While you're looking, do we have a list of your employees based on demographics?
We should have that. Yes.
I don't know if you have it. I can send that out.
Okay.
Just so that you know, we adjusted our demographics to the federal census categories. So
That's good.
they're going to be different categories from what they've been up until this point. I have no sworn retirees who came back for this fiscal year, who came back in other capacities. I mean, we have ones who were retired from years ago that continued in civilian positions, but no new ones.
So no carryovers from last year?
Yes.
Or we do have them carryover, but no
We do
new?
have carryovers, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, in fact, the 2 civil service conversions are retirees, but they were retired 17 and I think 11 years ago, and continuing in their contractual positions, employment
Okay.
agreement positions.
So when you say civil service conversions, they were civil servants when they were,
They
Active.
retired, and then they've been in employment agreement positions since then.
okay, so then they came back as contract employees.
Correct.
Yes,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
wanted to be clear. Thank you. The community policing resources. Chief, you mentioned resources, and that would kind of buoy up your community policing model. Can you give us a taste, and we have to be quick, but give us a taste of what kind of community service resources you would like to see that would help you move forward with your community policing model?
Yeah, eventually I'd like to see another Bishop Carroll. If you look at part-time, full-time contractual conversion, the reentry team member, he's that $50,000, is that correct? Yeah, he's that $50,000, where it says part-time to full-time, and that's fringe and benefits. Bishop Charlie Curl is currently doing that. So that's one example that I would like to enhance that eventually, because we could serve more people. What he's doing now is working alongside Rob Horn, and they do everything from picking up Annapolis residents to get them to their training. He's done some violence interruption for us, like a lot of, because he's he's an Annapolitan, he knows a lot of the players. And so he does that for me. He does so many things that I can sit down and have a conversation with you. But I would love to have another one of those, just for starters, many other things too. He's proved to be very valuable, and he works beautifully with Rob Horn and Smichael.
Well, I'm encouraging of that, and I will talk to you about some other opportunities to bring in volunteers to assist. So we can talk about that offline. I am thrilled to hear that you are conscious of trauma to the officers and the need for mental health attention for everybody. I mean, the whole city, all of us, really. You guys were hit very hard last year. MIT was hit very hard. And so it's really wise and cognizant of you to identify and try to provide that to all of our employees. You know, everybody comes off like big, strong guys and we can handle it, and really, not so much. So I'm just my comment, I'm glad that that's part of your budget.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You guys brought in 1.6 million in grants. This is early on in your presentation. And so my question is, how much do you generate for the city from your seizures? And what happens to those revenues? And I see the captain smiling at me because he knows where I'm going with this. So please share with us how this works.
So every year, finance asks us for a projection on our revenues from asset forfeiture. And every year we tell them, we don't know. And I think we ballparked FY23 at maybe $16,000 to $20,000. And that sounds incredibly low. The problem with projecting it is the investigations, most of them, we don't bring in a whole lot locally. There are some investigations that we do, just APD, that net proceeds in asset forfeiture, but it's relatively small. Any operation that's big enough to raise someone's eyebrows involves other agencies, and so we're on a task force. So we have various officers in different task forces around the region. And those big cases end up, there could be a seizure of $1.8 million, but it will take 2 to 3 years to get through the whole process before we see a wire come through from the federal government for that. Also, those larger operations involve so many different agencies that our slice of the pie decreases disproportionately to the size of the operation and the investigation. I can tell you this year so far, the last time I checked, which was probably a few weeks ago, I think we had only brought in, I want to say it was maybe 12,000 in the federal wires. There are other wires pending, and so we're anticipating those coming in, but I certainly wouldn't want to project that we're going to bring in, $50,000 or $75,000 next year, and then we come in with 15, and everyone's, really let down. So I try to estimate that as best I can. And I know that our task force officers are out there doing a lot of work. And so I see the paperwork come in for the hours that they're putting in, the assets that get seized, and I get email updates for where they are in the process. But it could be, like I said, the first few stages will happen within a few months' time or 6 months' time. But then from there to the actual adjudication of the case, the sharing decision, someone at the federal government agrees, okay, yes, you did put in that many hours, and here's how the split's going to be. And then the money actually coming through on the bank wire, it just takes a really long time.
Okay, so we're not getting $2 or $3 million. That's kind of what I was counting on, but it's not going to happen. So okay, I'm trying to show that you guys generate revenue also.
I try to as well.
Yes,
it's difficult.
Ms. Diggins.
Whatever additional revenue we do get in excess of what we have here, we'll be coming back to you for a supplemental appropriation to spend it. So maybe we will come with $1 million.
So you're going to put it back in our court, is that what it is? Yeah.
Yes, well, yes, when we have it, once in hand.
It's all good. I calculated 47 civilians and 109 sworn officers. Is that actually where you are today? And what are you seeking funding for? What's in the mayor's budget?
That is where we are today.
You're at 109?
Yes, I believe we're at 109.
And funding, are we at 114?
No, I believe the funding is for all positions, for all 124.
So there is turnover in their FY23 budget, meaning we are assuming that although they have the positions authorized, they won't be able to keep them all filled all year long. So we have a turnover factor in their budget, which effectively takes the total salaries and reduces it.
So
the funding has been reduced by a turnover factor. If that doesn't occur, and if we find out that the positions are filling faster, we'll have to come back to you for additional appropriations later in the fiscal year. I mean, that would be the best of all scenarios, right? They're filling their positions, that's great. So we would take a look and see what we could do at that time.
But that is a
124.
That is a stated goal to reach that 124. I met with my command staff, and we made that a stated goal to at least make a valiant attempt to reach that number. Of course, I have a separate sidebar argument. You've heard me whine about this almost since I've been here. I would still like to know where the formula to 3.2 per 1,000 residents, because I still argue that we could probably make the argument we should be a little larger, but I know it's for another time.
Good luck with finding the answer to that question.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I think I have exhausted overtime reductions. I see that in your budget you have far less budgeted for overtime for '23 than, is that because you expect to be able to hire up? And you don't need?
Yeah, that's a decision on our part, because we're hoping they will fill those positions. This, I believe the budget for FY '22 was 1.4 million. The budget for '23 is 1.5 million, but you will see that this year they are projected to be well in excess of the 1.4 on the overtime line. So that is largely due to the vacancy rate they have. They have to fill some shifts, they're paying overtime, so that number goes up and offsets some of that vacancy savings that we see. So we have it set a little higher, hoping to fill those positions, but if overtime increases due to vacancies, then they won't generate as much turnover as we
Okay,
anticipate.
Thank you, Ms. Dickinson. One last question that I skipped. Why is it that we didn't model Baltimore City's PAB, Police Accountability Board?
Working with the county and looking at, some had argued that there was kind of like a floor type ceiling with the state, that there was room to do certain things on the Police Accountability Board. My counter argument to that, and the reason I believe that the county didn't go to it is that we have to recognize that the Baltimore city system was created by the state legislature. They created it. It's more than 5 years old, so I would argue that they've had plenty enough time to study it and its effectiveness. And they purposely did not write it in the legislation. And so when people ask about what their intent was, I think their intent was clear. That that system was set up. They could have said, let's go with what not the city of Baltimore created, what we created, and have it for every county in the state. They did not do that. To me, that sent out a very clear message of what their intent was. Their intent was what they wrote. And that's why we didn't, the county didn't model it. They went with what they wrote.
Thank you. I knew the answer to that, but I wanted it spoken because there are certain assumptions about that, and we should be clear. So I think that exhausts my questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman O'Neill.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just have a few because I was able to check off some of my questions. Thank you to Alderwoman Finlayson. My question is about cameras. And I know that in the past, we've had some issues with cameras not working or not being turned on. What is the process for that? Do we have an inspection schedule for the cameras throughout the city?
I'm happy to say that MIT handles all the CCTV operations.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is a lot of times we are dealing not only with city-owned cameras, but cameras on properties where we work with the property owners. And so depending on what we're looking for, it may not be, we can encourage and remind property owners to keep their cameras up and running. But sometimes it's, it may not be in their budget. As far as inspections, I don't know. I would have to leave that answer to Director Paquin. This has been, over the past couple years, a process with moving the responsibilities for CCTV in the city to MIT from the police department. And so we're still, Director Paquin is not staffed for some of the things that we perform, like the review and stuff like that. So I think he would probably be better able to answer those questions for making sure that cameras are up and running and operational all the time or as much as reasonably possible.
Okay, thank you very much. My other question for you is talking about the staff positions that you're looking to bring on and have funded. In this day and age of having a hard time finding employees and staff, do you have some individuals in mind for those positions already? Do you have a plan for marketing for those positions? And
For the ones that we put into the enhancements or just in general?
let's talk about enhancements first and then in general.
So yes, the two positions that we put in the enhancements for have current employees in them, and they've been in them. Our special events coordinator has been in that position for contractually for 17 years. And our investigator support analyst has been in that position for 11 years. As Ms. McCoy mentioned, the decision was made to treat employment agreement positions as temporary and have that 5-year time limit. So in the past couple years, we've converted, I believe, 2. We have 6 remaining that we want to convert, and so we planned on doing 2 each year to lessen the fiscal impact. But I think there's more to that fiscal impact that we understand, and Director Dickinson can probably speak to. And so that's why we had put in for them this year.
As far as the other 3 positions, the part-time to full-time contractual conversion of the reentry team member, we do currently have a person in that position that is Bishop Carroll. We would like to keep him on and make him a full-time part of that team, the reentry team. We think that that's going to be pivotal for the program. The contractual full-time position for the internal affairs investigator. Yes, we do have a strategy for the persons. We don't have any particular person in mind, but we have a strategy for the type of person that we want to see, in that position. Someone who has investigated police incidents or has an active knowledge of police functions and police agencies, and someone with impeccable integrity and of those sorts. But we do plan on, if it's approved, posting the position out, and we have created a job description which I can forward to you on all the things that we will want to see.
And I'll just add, this only thing I interject as chief, it has to be a person that's committed to doing the work, not somebody who just wants to come here and see it as a retirement job. We need them to actually be committed to doing good quality work. They will come as a civilian. They may have police experience, but the only thing that I won't sign off on is somebody who just wants to come here and see it as a way to earn a couple of dollars. And not give us what we need to make sure that we're running an efficient and effective internal affairs operation.
The same with the body-worn camera reviewer. We do have a job description, currently for that. We'll be amending and changing, our CTT to add, some of those duties and responsibilities in it. What I can say is that other jurisdictions around the area, what we would hope for in the future, we know that, we don't have the budget for it now, but our allied agencies all have stood up body-worn camera units. They just have them, because of, redaction purposes, looking at the cameras, looking at CCTV, everybody recognizes that technology is pivotal in the crime fight. And so we would hope to stand up a whole unit in the future, but we recognize that, we got to start you know, we got to start from ground up. And of course, this would be, you know, a civilian force in that body-worn camera unit that would aid and assist us in the crime fight. But we recognize that we have to take baby steps, but we have to get started with something.
Great. Thank you very much. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, may I follow up with the question?
Yes, please, go ahead on that.
Is there a place in the budget where we can go for the total cost of the impacts of the state legislation? All 3 or 4 bills? Or,
Yeah, or if you could just total it for us under, yeah. I think it's in different places in the budget.
It is in different places in the budget, but, you know, I have a spreadsheet that I can send you
okay,
with
that'll be
all the
helpful.
breakouts.
Yeah, that would be great.
Since those things are mandated by the state, we want to make sure that everything is covered. So
We do, and some of them are, you know, that word, and I want to reiterate that some, you know, are projections. You know, we won't know until after we get finished talking with the, you know, with the state, I mean, with the county, AA County, on, you know, what, how the trial board system looks, how the accountability board system looks, if there are going to be costs associated with it. Again, we do know that I do anticipate that there are going to be costs technically because our systems don't talk to one another. We may incur some things of that nature. And then again, that bifurcated system. AA County is not responsible for our technical discipline cases. They're just not. But the law says that we have to stand up a trial board. So we'll have to do that, and we'll have to see what the cost of that is. Right now, again, if I'm basing it on a mean average of, you know, what we've had in the past, I came up with a mean average of 3, possibly 3 trial boards at a minimum of 2 days at 8 hours, and at $400 an hour, and that's just for the judge. And we come up with about 38,000, but I minimized that by 10 and made it 28. But at minimum, that's what you're going to see.
So you have placeholders in the budget for?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good. It's like we don't know what we don't know, right? Just very quickly, because I think I want to give the rest of the time for Q&A, and I know we're going to all just leave abruptly. Director, City Manager Jarrow, for tomorrow I have, you're not going to be here, I understand, for the Finance Committee meeting.
I'm not sure. I have to go to a court case, and it starts at 8:30. I'm going to try to get excused from attending all day. So if I get excused, I'll be here. If I have to stay, I'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I have you presenting, the City Manager's office presenting tomorrow. Still keep that on schedule then?
No, I would suggest that we bump it back to next week.
So that's moved, okay. So Finance Committee, the Human Resource, the Mayor's office, and the Finance Committee tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay, all righty. Okay, so we have a half hour left. My colleagues, if you're cognizant of that, so all 3 of you have your questions in. I'll start with Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll try to be very quick. First of all, I'm a little surprised. I know people are watching on cable, but I would have expected more people in the audience. I hope that's an indication of how good a job people think you're doing. And I do want to, speaking of good jobs, make a comment on your vision statement. It's a little long, but you're a big department with lots of responsibilities, and I found it to be quite good, very comprehensive. My major questions have to do with your slides 3 and 4, which have to do with the staffing and staffing allocation, and probably your 4th slide that shows where the sworn officers are allocated. We'll let you back up. Yes, that one. So out of the 109 officers shown there, quite a few of them, I think 54 if I added it up correctly, are not on patrol. And I'm kind of curious about how heavy 10 sworn officers in the chief's office and then 22 in the administrative and operation divisions. That could be because I don't understand fully what these sworn officers are doing, but I can tell you that the pressure and pinch that I'm feeling from my constituents is they want to see officers on the street. And I know part of that's a problem because we're just having a hard time getting up to strength, but I know in ignorance, they and I would say, gee, patrol officers are what we really are fond of. So I would give you an opportunity to comment on that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Actually, let me, Chief, if you don't mind. The first thing I want to point out is under the administrative division in the middle there, 21 sworn, 16 of those are officers who are in a non-full duty status, and that could be light duty medical officers we have in academies, lateral officers that we've hired who are in field training. So there's only 5 officers assigned to the administrative division who are working in the administrative division. And then the operations division is our investigative side. And then the office of the chief.
So that's detectives?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And the office of the chief, that can be deceiving. I don't have 10 sworn officers,
Right.
getting me coffee or answering the telephone. Those 10 sworn officers, if the org chart, if you look at it, they're direct reports to my deputy chief, Stan Bradford. That entails the reentry program, which has a couple of officers, community outreach, cold case squad. So those are working police who are out on the street. They're just, and the deputy is assigned to my office, and they are direct reports to him. And the org chart reflects that. In fact, Alderman Arnett, is funny because when I looked at that, that was the same question I asked. I said, I don't have 10 people. When I first looked at it at a glance, I told Rhonda, I don't have 10 people in my office, and I don't want the public to think that I have 10 people running around. But then when you look at the org chart, that's the deputy chief is absorbed in that. They're direct reports to him. So if you look at it, you see the arrow going down. It's the chief and then the deputy chief. But the deputy chief is a part of my office.
Right. Okay, I know I'll get questions.
And really out of the 10, that it does include me and the deputy. So really it's 8 when you subtract me and the deputy.
Okay, thank you. Quickly, I want to go to your slide 7, which is accomplishments. And one of the things I don't see here, but I learned a lot about with working with Ms. McCoy, is CLIA. And I think we have to, my takeaway from all of that work is we're one of the few departments that has CLIA, and departments that have CLIA have fewer problems. And so even though we've had it for a while, I still think you ought to cite that as an accomplishment, because I think that's very important.
Yes, sir.
My last, I do have some things that I could get into, but we don't have time. My last one is to relate to, I had a conversation with the delegate, Shanika Henson, Friday morning, and I was recalling the Safe Streets program before the Dem breakfast that we were both attending. And I think that was a very good program, and it really brought in a lot of resources. And I'll ask Alderwoman Finlayson to hearken, and you might have been there too, Alderman O'Neill. We were having lunch, and someone was listening in to our conversation, and it turns out he was a consultant to APD, and he made 2 points to us. And the big one was, we're a small, relative to the scheme of things, police department that is dealing with a huge problem. It's across the county and really across the eastern seaboard. And he really emphasized, if I remember this, that we really need to work together. I know you do, but that's why I thought about the Safe Streets program. That was a monthly meeting of juvenile justice, the sheriff's department, county police, a whole bunch of other organizations that we came together once a month and talked, but it also included the housing authority. which was very important. That is the other thing this person mentioned, that we really do have to focus on the opportunities for crime in and around the housing authority. But I think that Safe Streets program, I urge Delegate Hinson to remember us in next year's state budget. It was started by Delegate Bush. We had Beth Hart, who cost us $98,000 on a grant. But it was such an important thing to pull together resources. So I would really commend that we rethink, and I'd say that to the city manager as well, and I have said it to the mayor, that Safe Street program. So I do have a lot of other questions, but I don't want to take up the time, particularly taking it away from the chair of the Public Safety Committee. So I'm lucky I snuck in ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And speaking of which, Alderman Rob Savage emailed questions that I believe he forwarded to you. Could you, two of them were clearly answered, but could you respond in writing to those to save time?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And then just copy the city manager.
Yes, ma'am.
And us.
And us, yes. I assumed you would, yeah.
Yes,
well.
ma'am.
Alderman Gay.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam Chair. My first question is related to page 74 in the budget book. We've talked a lot about police recruitment, but there is no official police recruiter listed. I'm assuming, obviously, someone else is doing that role. Can a little bit be highlighted at maybe of some programs or what they actually do for engagement and recruitment, and how that can be enhanced so that we could particularly have success filling some of these roles?
Yeah, so our expenses for recruitment, we include with training. And so what we've been doing, what we've always been doing, is going to job fairs around this area, and if it's within a mile radius that's reasonable for our one recruiting officer to go to, then we make sure that we get him out there. We also try to involve other officers. We ask for officers who as long as they're not working the street, if it's their day off, if they want to come in, we try to get other officers out as well, so that we can involve them and keep that in the forefront of their mind, just the recruiting aspect and function of the department. We also so during COVID, obviously there were no in-person, job fairs. There were a lot of online job fairs, so we participated in those. As things have opened back up, we've been going to job fairs. We've also expanded the posting of our vacancies to different websites or social media avenues, putting it out on our daily report, putting it out, trying to put that out on our own social media pages. And, but our one recruiting officer recruits for our sworn positions, for all of our civilian positions. He conducts the initial contacts with applicants, sends them the background questionnaire, reviews those background questionnaires. Again, we try to get assistance from officers who aren't in a full duty status. One of the other things that they do is helping him with processing, applicant processing. But when he goes to events, and for example, the county police have 5 or 6 officers who work in recruiting, and that's all they do. And they only do recruiting for sworn positions. It gives you, an idea of just how big, the whole field is. And
that dollar amount, I'm assuming, is included, and you said under the training education. So what is proposed in fiscal year 23 is $500,000.
Yes,
so
sir.
Some of that will be used.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Awesome. My just for the sake of time, I gotta just jump ahead. Mm-hmm. The next question is for grants. the department has the largest budget in the city or proposed budget of $25 million, but there's only been 1.5 million brought in grants. My question is how can assistance be provided to, help you access grants? I can't imagine that in the world of public safety, there's only $1.5 million in grants available. When we see OEM come, they come in with millions and millions in dollars of grants. So I just have to ask, who's doing I don't want to know the exact person, obviously, but what's up with the grants and how can you bring in more money? I look at Joe Biden when he was announcing I think the American Rescue Plan or whatever it was, one of these, just the recent stimuluses that they did. And there was hundreds of millions of dollars in grant dollars available. I'm assuming we have to be eligible for that.
So there are a lot of grants that we are eligible for. A lot of them come in, with $200,000, $250,000 grants, but they're programs that we do not have the staffing for, and I'm not saying because of our staffing shortages, but just because of the size of department we are. When you take on a $250,000 or $500,000 grant, you need a team of people to manage that, to make sure that you're continuing all the contacts with the partners that you're involved with on that, because it doesn't just mean $250,000 or $500,000 for the police department. It's the police department and then the NGOs and non-governmental organizations that you're partnering with, and to pay for other organizations' people's salaries. One of the other things with the grants is we try to look closely at what equipment or services does the grant pay for that we will then have to take on paying when the grant ends. And so things that are equipment that's easy to purchase and maintain, then that's great. We can get the grant to pay for the large initial cost of it, and then the maintenance cost, may be minimal. That's the best of any, possibility.
I think the grants are significantly important, just as noted by the Alderwoman earlier. A lot of what is requested here and budgeted is paid for by tax dollars. And as you look at the trend, the police department's budget increases every year. And so at some point, we'll have no choice but to turn to our taxpayers and say, we need to raise property taxes to be able to afford to provide these services. I think, just increasing grants would help us offset that. It doesn't have to be 10 million a year, but I think 1.5 is, I just was a little worried about that just because I think it was said only 2 grants, if I'm not mistaken, but it could have been more of that.
Alderman, and
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate that, a lot of people, there are, like, especially with law enforcement grants, there are a lot of logistics behind them. The higher the money, the more logistics are behind getting the grant. So the grant may say, someone might say that there's a $500 million grant. We actually looked at one for the reentry program last year. Mm-hmm. And the stipulations for the grant was that you had to have NGOs, you had to have a, non-government organization as a partner. But now, for some of the more, if it's $100,000 or over, the federal government is not going to give you a grant without testing it. They want to know outcomes. So now you have to have a research partner. And, so kind of, we want to do, some of the grants, we're looking at one, now, but one of the big things is that it's all the logistics that go behind it. Trying to get first and foremost, getting a person in, and it can't be your grant coordinator. It has to be your grant manager to actually manage that grant. Then you have to get that research partner, and that is, school, college, basically in criminology, to be able to do the work over time and report out. Then it is the NGOs, and then working out all the logistics, because everybody thinks like, oh, hey, we're going to get the grant. But, when we were talking about the reentry grant, one of the big things is because the NGOs, they need things too. They really need things. We need things. Is working out all the money, how the money is allocated, and then who is going to manage the grant, who is going to be the lead or the primary on the grant. If it's APD, we just lost our grant coordinator last year due to unforeseen circumstances, and we miss her. She was golden, and we're trying to hire another one. But we are looking, Captain McGaz and I have thinking about we have to do more with less, but we're thinking like hybrid, we might need coordinator / grant manager, which would increase the cost, but prove to be over time and getting grants in and then managing them a good thing.
Yeah, because
I was going to say the same thing, but the quickest thing that'll sink a police chief is the mismanagement of grant funding. And you're hard pressed to find a grant nowadays but here's what I like to say. I was going to say the same thing that McCoy just said, but even beyond that, most of them are evidence-based, and number two, we would need to have a serious discussion, because I'm in agreement that we need more grant funding, but then we have to talk about restructuring the Annapolis Police Department, because you're absolutely right, Alderman, there's millions of dollars out there. We had a grant, when I first came here, we had a grant manager that left, and the reason why she left, she told me during her exit interview, the very reason that Ms. McCoy stated, she says that we don't have the bandwidth. She used a technology analogy to support some of the funding that I would like to seek. But I do agree that when you look at the Baltimore City's model and other biggest jurisdiction, they have a whole grant funding unit that they hire just to make sure that they partner with the right people, the NGOs that she talked about, the colleges and universities. The first thing we need to do is have a discussion about linking on to an institution of higher learning. Nowadays, that's where we're a little bit antiquated. We should be partnering with an institution of higher learning.
They just had Morgan State here this weekend, I think.
Yes.
In some sort of fashion. But just because I have to move on for the sake of time, I think that's really that's important, though. I would totally like to maybe follow back up about the grant process and seeing how we can help. Am I correct in reading here? Now, I'm not referring to staffing and what you tell your staff to do, because that's a completely different thing than the actual dollar amount. But budgeted is only $141,000 for programs and activities, and I'm assuming in that are community relations and services programs. How is that sufficient in helping you achieve the goal of community policing?
I'm sorry, which...
I'm sorry, I'm looking at, I don't know if you have access to OpenGov.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, perfect, yeah, so I'm under supplies and other, and then it says programs and activities. It's just $141,000. And I'm wondering if that is all that is budgeted for community policing.
Oh, no. So those actually, the programs there, that's for our Strengthening Families program that we participate in with the county, and our mobile crisis program, and then expenses related to the community resource centers that we have out in a couple of the neighborhoods.
So where could we find?
If you're looking for how much we spend on community outreach and those kinds of things, most of that is involved with, there's salaries for the personnel in our community services unit, and then supplies that they purchase or that we purchase for them to use in those activities that they have. But there isn't any one account that is just for that. for those sorts of activities and functions.
So you don't want us to judge the budget on your correlation to the community relations / policing. I'm assuming you'd want us to judge that based on action.
Yes, and by the way, you brought up something that I had a discussion about the other day. I want that community policing model, because it is a philosophy, but I do want measurables in the future, but I'm not prepared at all to tell the council about measurables yet.
I think that would be so helpful too, because, you know, we see the work. I've witnessed you all at a number of events in the communities, etc. But it's helpful because we can say there were 5 events. That's great, but it's like, what happened at those 5 events? Maybe how many people were assisted, etc.
And to give you an example of that, and I won't be long, I promise. You have your quantitative.
We do have to go to Alderwoman Penn.
Okay. You have the quantitative, and this only take a second. You have your quantitative measures, then you have your qualitative. The quantitative is not what we're struggling with, it's the qualitative. So one of my ideas was to find a good survey and find the right distribution methodology to actually poll the residents about the services that we provide and solicit ideas from the public at large. But it has to be done in a way, if I'm going to present it publicly, that it's not biased. In other words, I don't want it to appear that I'm being my own PR person and that the information that I'm soliciting benefits the Annapolis Police Department and me as the chief. So that's just a vision that I have. Because qualitative is far more challenging, and I remember that from my doctoral days. It's easy to count how many events you've had, but then how do those events tie into the overall mission of public safety and recidivism and making the neighborhood safe? And that's something we're going to work on.
Perfect. Also, was touched on the videos, and obviously, I have no issue with seeing an increase in the budget for that, because obviously everybody utilizes the body-worn cameras, and I see them as an asset to policing. There was a lot of cost associated with that, but we aren't maybe necessarily talking about revenue that could be received from the body-worn camera program. Now, it may have changed, but I recall that when going through the process of helping a constituent retrieve body-worn camera footage, there was, for someone in these communities, substantial cost associated with retrieving the footage. And so what is done with the revenues that, if you are saying like, hey, and that's another point, are there incidences that we may not be aware of as the council, because it was insinuated, or maybe I just read it wrong, that there have been a number of requests over the years for body camera footage related to incidents? And so can you put that into numbers? How many times a year are you receiving requests for body camera footage, and then the revenues received from, because they got to pay for the CD, they have to pay actually for the staff person. I think there's like $30 an hour or something like that. So how is that all being translated to this now $70,000 position?
So the position itself, when we spoke with HR about the position itself is based on the responsibilities and duties of the position and kind of the market rate for that work, as it would be for any position. In general, the fees that we charge for body-worn camera footage to be provided are to cover the costs. It's not, there isn't a 50% markup or anything on that. It's not an intended revenue stream.
So maybe just help me here, and I'm just jumping to the question. If it's being covered in a contract, so the contract that the city's paying for, I think you said, was $1.5 million over 5 years. If the cost for storage is being covered, and now we're covering the cost for the position, would there be a need for the fee?
The fee is for the time that it takes the personnel to research and, I guess, extract. There's kind of two different fees in the fee schedule. There's one that's research and review, and then there's one that's providing the actual product. And so it's covering the time of the personnel looking at that body-worn camera footage or CCTV footage, whatever it is, and then providing it. And so if in providing it, we have to conduct redaction, then it's set up as a quote that we would provide, because we need to know first in the research and review part of the process, how long is the video? How much video are we talking about? Is it 5 minutes or is it an hour? And based on that, this is what it's going to cost us personnel time-wise to conduct the, complete the redactions. The cost of the CDs are minimal, right? I mean, they're a quarter a piece or something like that. But it's the time that it takes to research and retrieve and then process that.
So that time wouldn't be covered by salary? I mean, if I show up to work and my role is to, watch videos and retrieve and redact videos, would I not be, is that not why we're paying what would be the $70,000 salary?
But I believe the fee is going to the city as an entity. It's not, it's coming through the department, but it's going to finance. It's not, as far as I know, not coming, directly to the police department. It would be
also helpful if we could maybe just get a summary of what that fee was maybe over the last 2 or 3 years. Just to see, is it even needed, could we?
Yeah, I think it all goes through the city attorney, right?
It goes to city, the actual money, goes to city finance. And I believe, if I'm understanding your question, Alderman, we don't see the fees. Like we charge the fees, they're paid to, Director of Finance.
And it's put in the general fund probably.
Yes, they go to the general fund. So, we don't have any control over the allocation of, could the city allocate those fees back to that position? Yes, but we don't have any control over that.
And you mentioned also, and I asked Ross, and he said yes. So I'm thinking that's right. When you rehire, as you mentioned previously, you have 14 rehires. Are they being given their retirement plus the salary that they are now eligible for as a rehire plus additional benefits, or how is that working?
So as I mentioned, we haven't had any. We haven't had anyone
not
retire.
In this fiscal year, I'm sorry, but in the last.
And so, okay, so I'm not sure about the number 14, but I can just tell you in general, if somebody retires, they are getting their retirement, whether they come back and get a job with us or with someone else.
Because that's a state retirement, Alderman Gay. Okay, it has nothing to do with city.
Yeah, but I just was asking, but they are getting both, correct? They would be getting the salary.
They would be getting the salary of their new position. And
their retirement?
And their retirement, that's correct.
Okay. And for the sake of time, I'll pass. I did have a couple more questions because it was a good presentation, and we don't see the numbers, but I guess I'll pass it on, and maybe we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks, I think, again, because the last budget cycle, you allowed us to have departments come back, so.
No, they're not coming back.
Well, rules change.
We don't have time.
But I like to go on the record I like to go on the record real quickly, though. I'm dead set against, and I told my staff that if a person retires, they can't retire and do the same job they did when they were sworn. Mm-hmm. I just think it's unethical. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
I have no problem hiring retirees, but if they were doing something and then they just retire so they can collect their pension, then get a nice fat contract on top of what they were doing. I don't like that.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles, when is the next rules public safety meeting?
2nd or the 4th, whatever day that Monday is.
Okay, could that be an opportunity to get these questions answered as well?
Say that again.
Could Alderman Gay get his questions answered?
Certainly. Now, what I was going to propose, if Alderman Gay has 5 more minutes and you give me about 7 or 8, but that's up to your
I just
committee.
have one really, I mean, we can talk
That's your
about
committee's
it.
call.
We're trying to be disciplined here. We only have 2 minutes.
It would be,
your
it
committee's
would be
call.
really good to do it at public safety. I would love that because
Yeah.
I want to be able to support maybe your possible amendment is what I'm hearing for reentry services. But I need to be able to see.
I asked
Stats.
that, well, I asked that question.
Okay, yeah.
As a one-time expense, what would be needed to optimize that program?
What are we getting the one-time expense for? Like, how successful has it been? We've seen it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
right.
Yeah.
That's a good point, like number of graduates, et cetera. You probably have that information.
That is on the, that is on your presentation, Alderman Gay. Let me go back to the page about the reentry stats and the number of people that they've graduated and they they've graduated 30 at-risk people from Annapolis communities, and 75% of the graduates are currently employed, and no reentrants have reoffended after graduating the program.
All right, Alderwoman Pendle-Charles.
Thank you. I'm gonna run through this really quickly. Number one, can you go back to the org chart, please? That's the first slide, I do believe. And if my eyes are correct, and I may not know the org chart, my eyes may be deceiving me. Chief, I think you missed one category, the chaplains program.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, we added that. That's an old org chart. I thought y'all would miss that, but we do have it. I'll send you an updated copy. I caught that too.
Thank you. The other thing is to quickly, the MOU with the Capitol Police, what is their radius area? If you have that.
It's generally 1,000 feet from where they're headquartered at. The MOU would establish that they would have a little more leeway to help us doing special events.
1,000 feet from where to where?
I believe it's from the end of their actual jurisdiction.
From the, that's exactly right. From their headquarters.
House-ish
From the
area.
state.
Yeah, they have properties around there on Calvert Street, and then going around State Circle, obviously.
So we're talking about the Clay Street corridor area?
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct, yes,
Very
ma'am.
good. Job fair. I think there's one on the 28th this week at Pitt Moyer that the APD will be participating in. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just thank you so much for enlightening us about all the increases and the contracts and the vendors. That's really, 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 really helpful. I noticed today, I haven't had a chance to read today's Capitol headline about Anne Arundel County residents being very concerned about public safety. That was the headline in the Capitol today. Yes, looking for the place where it says that the census is supposed to correlate with the number of officers that we need. And I did put out to my colleagues as well as our state delegation about recruitment. Hopefully, everybody is able to possibly recruit one person from their ward. That would be great. And also, Alderwoman Tierney and I had a conversation with Senator Elvrith about the same thing and their scholarships, and the APD is supposed to hone in on one person to possibly give a scholarship for that as well. So we talked about that. And so recruitment is huge. And I think that's all I had. I really didn't have any questions, just kind of comments. I think that's it. Thank you all.
I'm sure you know the department very well.
I try to keep up.
So I was scribbling down a few requests, and do you need me to summarize, or pretty much it was the?
I think we have everything.
Good.
If you, for whatever you have, and if there are any other questions, I know Alderman Gay had
Okay,
some.
I'll follow up with an email.
And we were talking about following up at a Public Safety Committee meeting. If you could send those questions ahead of time, it would just be a lot more helpful, because sometimes they're questions that are completely sensible, but it's information that I'm not able to pull up, immediately. And something like that, if I have, a week or so, then I can get that stuff together.
Thank you. And this has been a process where our budget process has really worked. We had an initial city council work session where we established our priorities, and one of them was public safety. Much attention was given to your budget, and we can see that. So Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments, other than thank you?
Thank you very much.
I'm sort of embarrassed with our prize, though, because but I'm going to give it anyways. You get everybody, because we try to offset the painfulness of this. We have a little present, but I ran out of my numbers ball, so you get footballs.
Aren't they the best ones? Aren't they light up?
Yeah, I'm going to give you the 3 lit up ones.
These are the better ones, so you're good.
These are really cool. And actually, if I hit the floor, you'll see why, but karma.
I like that purple. That's the color of my fraternity.
Oh, see, there it goes.
Receive.
This is the,
I like, oh,
good.
come on, there's more of them.
sorry.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. You've passed.
Oh, thank you.
That's the premium dollar store one.
Tell them you got them.
And just so you know, this is
Thank you very
really my
much.
color. So I
Aren't they
appreciate
great,
that.
though? They're great. I didn't know they lit up.
Oh, my gosh, yes, you got the purple.
I got the purple, that's right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say a quick thank you to city management and the city council for last year's budget. One of the enhancements that we had put in last year was for movable shelving to assist in our evidence unit, and that's been getting installed over the past couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and it's just it's a complete game changer. And I just wanted to say thanks for that.
And I think it's a CALEA standard too, and
It relates to
CALEA, so.
I just had one very last urgent thing, and I'm so upset I forgot to ask. I didn't see, because you had mentioned previously that would be in the budget, I didn't see enhancement requests for the cold case. Is that something that can be added?
Yes, I thought that was in there. It's not.
I may have overlooked it, I'm sorry, but yeah.
for
Cold case for
investigator.
investigators.
We have the position, so we just need to fill that, and that'll be good.
I thank you. My ward has an invitation to see your ops center this Thursday. I will not be able to be there because of this. We have a work session. I'll be there for the first half hour just to introduce myself. So, thank you very much. With that, I'll.
One other thing I want to mention, thank you all so much for the area community meetings that you all been having. They've been extremely helpful in answering questions, and people feel connected more to what you are doing, and understandably more. That has been huge, and it's on TV as well, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah, there was a resident at Park Place, because that you're a rock star. That one resident said, "Where did you find him?" That was classic. So, there's a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.